competitive level, what are we going to do? But on an emotional level, going against the people that you've come up around.
Yeah, and you know, in games like Mecha Break, there's always such a strong community atmosphere. And so even in the competition, it looks like our opening map is going to be Crab Sinkhole. I'm going to hold that thought as we go to the striker ban phase. Opportunity now. We talked about these teams having different styles. This is their moment to define what their style is and what it is not.
And we're banning Welkin, so maybe a bit harder to cap the points.
I mean, Crab Sinkhole Welkin is a real game changer in terms of giving you that opening to really put pressure on the point. Falcon ban clearly really being targeted on Ramen right now. So Team NGT, putting some respect on the name.
Ramen wasn't even phased by this. I think talking to him a little bit earlier in the day, he knows that people are going to ban Falcon against him. It is the striker that he plays day in and day out, so it should be a very easy flex onto the Sky Raider. I'd be surprised to see him go something else as he is considering. He's hovering. Yesterday, though, they were, again, unequivocal about the mistake that they had made yesterday. Putting Ramen Rook on the Narukami, they went, no, we're not doing that again. So I'm expecting Sky Raider.
Yeah, another flyer. Makes sense as a natural swap. However, no Aquila on this map would be a really interesting call. This is a... Am I seeing this right? Is there Stego? So Stego, Tricera. That's all they're going to run in terms of the front line. Then Inferno, Sky Raider, and Elise Ness. So a lot of damage available. And with the Welkin ban, it makes sense. You got a little bit more room to run those high damage options.
I mean, I wouldn't love going into a matchup where you just don't have an Aquila, but you could rely on your Sky Raider to maybe deal with it. Not as mobile as the Falcon, but with a player as experienced as Ramen Rook, I do think that you can go, well, we have a flyer who should be able to harass Aquila out of the sky and provide so much more utility to the team than Aquila will be able to when Aquila's constantly running.
I mean, that's going to be a key matchup here. I think if Aquila can flip the script and turn the pressure back the other way, that's going to be what they need for Team NGT. It's going to be a lot of pressure on this Aquila to continue to deliver picks, to win those fights and shrug off some of that flanking pressure from Ramen Rook's Sky Raider.
EMPYREAN and NGT. It's going to be a tight matchup, and we're already on board with our flyer, Ramen Rook, who's going to have to put pressure onto, of course, the Aquila, but also the rest of the map, using the utility, the jamming missiles especially, of the Sky Raider to make a big difference for the squad. Everyone else getting set up around point A, not quite unlocked yet, but should be in the next 10 seconds.
Yariella already getting struck in here, wanting to find some value in the sky, dueling over these high ground positions, protecting his team's flanks.
Nakako up here as well. This is looking like a pretty good spot for the Elysnes, though, and that is the problem when Elysnes is destroying your back line. Unfortunately, though, we talked about putting pressure onto the Aquila. I'm not seeing a whole lot of it. I'm seeing Nas putting on the pressure.
Yeah, pumping damage from this guy on Aquila. So valuable. And EMPYREAN down one. Not out of it just yet.
Nakako! Might be popped into Baby Elysnes pretty soon, and commits for the slam. You knew that was coming. You've got airdrop armor available at any point. Trip going to go for the point cap right now. Not a bad move by any means. Always see if you can pull this off, just in case nobody's looking. But Magical Abyss going to be covering the point as well. Nas continuing to find kills, however, as Caladan is going to go down. EMPYREAN getting staggered, and they're going to lose this point at some stage very soon, especially as BNC become available and you can really spread pressure throughout the map. That's where I'm expecting, if anything, EMPYREAN to pull ahead, because that's when they can utilize the fact that they have the only flyer.
Yeah, both teams here committing everything on the middle point. Now with all 3 points open, this is a particularly crucial moment. Team NGT are coming up with the kills, though. That's crucial here. Eventually that should lead to a cap, but so far they haven't been able to clean up a fight. And they do still have a few low players. So it's really getting chaotic. Ramen Rook, as you mentioned, taking that flyer, capping one of the flank points. And EMPYREAN are managing to fight this back despite losing a couple critical pickoffs early. Sky Raider caps a point and gets right back into the fray. Both teams, though, with a side point cap. No major advantage just yet.
Want to see us hit with those jamming missiles sooner rather than later, especially once we get the jamming haze back up from Stego. It could be good. Magical Abyss, though, going down. That is so bad for the side of EMPYREAN, losing this huge source of damage. And Nas free firing from the side has had a fantastic performance on this Aquila, makes sure that point B isn't being back capped, and it is a lead for NGT, largely made up of kills because the points are even.
Yeah, very, very even. Other than the kills, it still matters, but not that significant on this point. Both teams would love to get that middle capture controlled. Chaldean, though, does find Trip, and that's a critical pickoff. Nas here on the flank, wants to come back into the engagement, and man, Inferno has been such a key damage dealer, really just pumping numbers so far in the map, and EMPYREAN, they know about it. They're trying to flip the pressure back the other way. Both teams only 5 strikers alive here. Pretty much everybody fighting over the center point.
Roshugi just trying his best he can to completely ignore the Illusions. You'd like to just pretend that this doesn't exist, and especially when you've got this Aquila putting on as much pressure as they are, you can kind of afford to do that because Illusions can't take care of every problem. You can only do one at a time.
Yeah, and Celia under a ton of pressure. Losing Stego would be a death blow right now, but NGT, they've dropped so many players. EMPYREAN, they're low, but they're managing to trade this pressure admirably well. Not dropping key players at this moment, but still unable to get the capture. I mean, without Welkin, it's so hard to secure these caps.
Still waiting for the Haze to come back. Chaldean would love to get back on the point, but can't afford to do so. Yariella jumping up into the sky, trying to put some pressure on this Aquila. It's finally your turn to absorb the Illusions. We'll see what ends up happening here, as it should be a pretty easy kill for Illusions, especially once you get this close. Missing the dash attack, though. Nas gets to buy a little bit more space. Yariella doesn't have a transform available, so they are just going to go down. Nas outplaying the Illusions.
Yeah, and these middle structures are all starting to go down with the amount of spam trade that has come through already in the game. Slight lead for NGT, but with 2 kills down, EMPYREAN struggling to fight this one back. Need to keep this presence alive. They can't afford to give up A with how hard it's been to capture the first time. There it goes. Oh, that's massive for NGT.
Given how hard it has been to capture that so far, I don't see this being an easy retake for EMPYREAN. They'd much rather focus around the outside, something that, to his credit, Ramanaruk has been doing an excellent job of defending, but it's taken Skyraider away from other, I think, to some more important tasks, and that is going to be something that EMPYREAN likely disagree on, but unfortunately, having Skyraider constantly side-capping points, constantly monitoring these objectives, means that he's not actually in the sky, taking out people like Naz, pressuring people like Ryoguchi.
Yeah, and Nakao is just keeping some key players from EMPYREAN occupied on the C point. He can just attempt the cap, doesn't really necessarily need to get it done, but just being a distraction, I think, is doing enough here, because elsewhere, NGT are winning, right? They've got 2 points cap. They don't really need to change this status quo. They just want to deny EMPYREAN from making that big concerted push they're hoping to get done. Nozomi pouring on the pressure on the Aquila, and Scylla on the low ground, flanked, pressured with the help of Inferno. It's a pick-off, and he's right back into the main engagement.
There's just not really a lot of ways that you can deal with this, and until we see that happen, it's going to be a slowly but surely winning battle for NGT, who don't have to worry about a recap in the center. It's a lot of damage being pumped through, and I could smell an Aquila MVP in the making if this doesn't get shut down soon.
Yeah, Nozomi is getting so much done. The decision not to mirror the Aquila looks pretty rough here on Crop Sinkhole. So far, Skyraider has been relatively quiet.
I guess the nice thing is that EMPYREAN know that you're not going to see that band again, which actually helps quite a bit when they're looking at the future of this series. It is a best of 3, and even if they do end up missing out on the win this map, they'll still get the chance to select the next one knowing that they've got Falcon back in their pocket.
Nakao, see what he's able to get done here on the backline above this Tricera, pumping in damage from above, avoiding those adaptive shields. Still a lot of support coming in onto Tricera. Not so easy to burst down this heavily defensive, tanking striker.
There's a point that we can start monitoring, though. Once you hit above 700, if your opponent hasn't cracked the 500 mark, it's basically a done deal. In very few situations can you come back from that. And
once you get that 2-to-1 lead, right? Once you get to the point where you only need to hold a single point to win from there on out, that's a huge difference maker. So 2-to-1.
We're about to hit it.
Yeah, it's pretty much there. NGT passing that crucial 2/3 marker, and from here on out, they don't have to do anything crazy, but they're still winning. They're still dominant in the fights. That's how they got to this point already, and there's no reason to give EMPYREAN a free fight, right? At this point, you want to twist the knife on them, really assert your dominance for going deeper into the series.
Ryoguchi doing a really good job of staying alive, something that actually has bitten EMPYREAN. As much as they've made this a pretty even fight when they're in it, The loss of the point and the loss of so many lives along the way has extended their respawn timers by so much. It takes so much more time for them to get back into things that you lose exponential amounts of pressure every time that somebody goes down. And people are going down on EMPYREAN. It is a continuing problem for them.
Yeah, the team fight pressure is immense. Nozomi on the flank, trying to capture this point, but getting pressured by Ramanuk, who's so low, though. It's very scary for Ramanuk to even hold off on this point. Really does not want to go down right now on the Sky Raider, being evasive, trying to juke away. Even has Luminate coming in here to support, but that means there's a real lack of assistance in the main group team fight, and NGT are pouncing. That's a 30-second respawn for Ancilla.
And such a good recognition by Nozomi to go, well, there are 2 people on me. That means there aren't 2 people elsewhere. You will notice that EMPYREAN are actually doing a really good job now of capturing these side points, but I fear, Jake, that it's a little too late.
Yeah, honestly, Team NGT, they don't actually need to flip one of these side points. As long as they hold on to A, this is a winning position for them. If at any point as well, EMPYREAN stops defending a side point, it could be a spot for pressure. But hold on, the triple cap comes in for EMPYREAN. If they can defend this, this is a winnable scenario.
Now time to see NGT when the screws are put to them. What do they end up getting, Chu? Looks like Node B. Not really under a whole lot of pressure there, as it was basically solo capped. We've lost a member of EMPYREAN as well, remembering that lack of pressure that having a numbers disadvantage leads you to. We could see a recap on C, as I'd much prefer that from NGT than trying to recap A, that is the main focus of this lobby.
They do have that single point. Now the double cap on the outside, and NGT may have done enough here. EMPYREAN, they need to somehow re-secure that triple cap, but leaving mid is such a fraught proposition. Which way do you go? Roshigu defending here on Objective C, making it very difficult to recap. The rest of the squad here for NGT not far behind. They're splitting onto both side points, and they only really need to win one of these fights. So even if you're losing, if you lose well here on the side, if you just deny the cap flip, Roshigu continuing to put that damage down, making sure nobody can flip C. And here it goes. Feels like too little too late here. EMPYREAN struggling to make something happen here. Points ticking up here for Team NGT.
Yeah, looking at the way that this was played, because it is a game that now has essentially happened in the past. This is a very good game out of Team NGT. They've controlled the space really well, and I will say, what a turnaround from the scrims that they've had today. It's a good thing that they've been focusing on things like Krob Sinkhole, because being able to spread out and take those fights up against teams like EVA that are in the winner's bracket, and taking that experience back down to the lower bracket, it pays off hugely here.
Yeah, they played incredibly well. You can see the excitement on their faces. Means a lot to them to get that map win. And for EMPYREAN, that's got to sting. Right now, they're 0-3 in maps in the tournament. They qualified here out of a community tournament. And frankly, I think Team NGT came here with lower expectations. They came here from a very strong region. We've seen some really strong Japanese teams. So they might have come here thinking, all right, look, there's some really scary teams. We're not sure we're going to be able to do well. So the fact that they're able to, like you said, take those scrims and actually deliver a win here against a North American squad, EMPYREAN is on the bubble, and I think the pressure is really going to start to mount on them now.
Yeah, I'd say so, but we got that release valve. Falcon's already been banned.
True.
And when I'm talking to EMPYREAN, that is basically their game plan, is to have their Falcon player unleashed. I think Sky Raider looked all right, but it took a little too long for Sky Raider to become a relevant force, and it's difficult to know whether that's because of the pick or whether it's because of a lack of scrimming on Krob Sinkhole.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I think Aquila really ran rampant.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it's a map where Sniper just seems super powerful, really dominant. You can kind of, wrap all the way around that middle ring and continue to put damage down and pick off any backliners that expose themselves. And I think the game plan just wasn't really there to deal with it. Maybe the Falcon would have been the answer, but with the ban, felt like maybe a Sniper was necessary for EMPYREAN, but they didn't have the draft, they didn't have the strategy for it. So they fall here on Krob Sinkhole. Thinking about where you go next, that Falcon, core part of your identity, what type of maps are you starting to look at if you're EMPYREAN?
I think it's difficult. I think you don't want to go to Palm Bay Harbor, and I may eat my words because they may very well lock it in, but Palm Bay Harbor I'd definitely avoid if you're planning to play Falcon.
That'd be more natural for Team NGT, right? They like the group up. They were winning the group up trades there on that map.
Yeah, Graceland Sky City might be good. I think that a good Falcon can really turn the tides there. As much as we saw this become a war of attrition, you take a Stego ban there. Stego hasn't been banned yet. Take that out. Maybe go to Graceland Sky City. I think you could pick up a win.
Yeah, and Stego was, I think, a strength there for NGT. Their main group was fighting incredibly well around that. They were looking really strong, winning those main trades, which, I mean, part of that is the Aquila. Right?
Yeah.
You got to give credit, I think, for the Aquila doing a little bit more poke pressure, and Skyraider maybe wasn't able to keep up in that department. Curious to see, though, we're thinking about MVPs as we look at the stats. I'm really curious to see, like, what kind of damage was Skyraider able to deal in that game. It helps us, I think, get a better analysis, because Skyraider and Aquila, they're doing such different things in the match, right? It's hard to compare them, so I think that data might give us a better sense of who's doing well. I feel like maybe Aquila was the MVP, though, in that last match.
Yeah, I think so.
Really, like, a lot of key pickoffs. And we saw, I mean, think about how long that first point took to cap. So many pickoffs came in, and it was really Team NGT getting the better of it. It took them a while for them to cap, but you got to think that manifested later into the match with those very long respawns that felt like it kind of broke the back for Team EMPYREAN. I'd
have to agree. It was a pretty low cap game, to be honest. Yeah. Most of the game was played out with 3 caps and just sticking that the whole time. And when you're not waiting objectives, or when those objectives maybe don't weight as heavily because not as many of them occurred, I think you've got to be giving it to the person that was collecting the most damage, likely the most kills in the game. And while it is just a guess, we'll call it a pretty educated guess because we saw what happened on the map.
Yeah, no Welkins, I think, really changes that Crumbsicle a ton. Yeah. We realize how important, we see a lot of the Welkins in this tournament really focused on capturing objectives, and I think that's just a very powerful, consistent play style. So when the Welkin ban comes in, I think it really does throw teams for a loop. It forces you to take a different approach, maybe a slower approach to the game. Let's take a look at the stats here.
Nice call. Pretty nice damage out of Nozomi. And when we're talking about direct damage, like you said just last round, snipers really get an advantage here with part of their damage piercing fluid armor. It's going to be true for Aquila and, of course, the Naruto that unfortunately wasn't in this match.
Yeah. The Aquila really pumped it out in that. I mean, 8-0 and 5. And Ramenbrook, despite getting, the most merit points for the team, not able to find any kills. Really, you think about across EMPYREAN, right? They're really just not able to find that many kills in this match.
Yeah, and I will say kind of a Skyraider problem as well, because Skyraider doesn't have the crucial mobility that Falcon has when downward spiraling to be able to stick on a target. But let's bring it back to Nozomi. We picked it right, and I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back for that. I'll give you a pat on the back as well because, while it may not have been very difficult to predict, it was cool to see.
Yeah, it was awesome to see the Aquila in that map really able to have free reign. I think that the 179 defense is actually pretty huge. So I think the Aquila was really aware of the possibility of those back caps denying them from very long range. It's a little special bit of utility that the Aquila brings, especially on Crumbsicle. So I think this is also, you got to think about potential target ban for Team EMPYREAN, right? They weren't running an Aquila of their own. Maybe it's not something they want to focus on. And so it's something you could think about banning out, taking out of the game with Nozomi having MVP on map 1. Maybe you just force them to bring out something different on map 2.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you're able to pick a map that maybe is a little bit closer range, if you have a Falcon to equalize the Aquila, there's a world where the Inferno pick actually works out because that's what was traded out. It was Inferno in place of running something like an Aquila for EMPYREAN, and that wasn't really getting nearly as much value despite the incredibly high damage potential that we know something like Inferno has.
Yeah, and Roshigu on the other side on the Inferno was able to get a lot done, even just denying captures in contested locations, right? With that big area of effect laser skill. Really difficult to cap in front of that, especially with no Welkin, able to block that energy damage or drop the shield to secure a capture. So, I mean, the Welkin ban came in. Like, this is EMPYREAN chose this, and it is going to be Palm Bay. Okay. I'm worried about them here. Maybe with an Aquila ban, maybe that changes this game enough to let something like a Falcon have more impact. But I feel like you really need to take the Aquila out here. It was so devastating against you on map 1.
And it's really good on Palm Bay Harbor.
Yeah.
Again, even knowing that Falcon is going to be likely in play here, I still wouldn't want to take this chance. It's like, it may not be what I would have picked, but the team, you have to trust them to know best as well.
Yeah.
This squad does talk to each other quite a bit, but I'll also throw in there that they are one of those teams that tends to get quiet when things get difficult, and I'm hoping that is not a problem for them moving into this next round.
Yeah, I mean, this is that moment when you need somebody to rise above the pressure. Let's take a look at the ban pick. Team NGT banning first. See who they're going to take out. Hovering the Inferno. Going to commit for it. Don't want to deal with that. And that signals to me they might want to play a heavier tanking style. Inferno, one of the few choices that can really break it. And Team EMPYREAN going to ban the Elyseness.
Not a terrible ban. I like saving the Stego if you go to Game 3 for Graceland Sky City, because that's probably where you're going, and Stego's such a potent ban there. I'm actually surprised the team NGT didn't take it out now and just bet on themselves to have a really good Stego game. But, you know, it is what it is. Looking at the way that this is playing out right now, I'm noticing Sky Raider hovered for Ramen Rook. This is surprising given that Falcon is available, but maybe they feel they can get more value out of the jammer missiles on Palm Bay Harbor than Falcon might be able to.
They are running the ultra heavy quad tank here with the Hurricane in the lineup. Hurricane, Stego, Tricera, and Welkin. It's a monster stack here for the objective fight. And Ramen Rook on the Sky Raider, see what he's able to get done. Probably going to be all on his lonesome in a lot of these situations. And interesting, Team NGT are going to run the Panther and the Aquila. So a much lighter, more mobile composition. EMPYREAN going for the ultra heavy tank stack on the card. We've seen a lot of teams really have a lot of success on Palm Bay with this strategy. NGT, they got their work cut out for them picking it apart. It'll be very hard to win the heavy tank trades. They're going to need to find pickoffs. They're going to need Aquila and Panther to get the work in here.
I may not love Sky Raider, but I have a lack of love for picking Hurricane even more, or not picking Hurricane even more so. NGT not locking that in on this map. I think Hurricane has become, especially when you're running into a really heavy tank composition, it has become a pick or lose on Palm Bay Harbor.
Yeah, I think it's core to the meta right now with how durable it makes the rest of your tanking lineup, keeps everybody up, keeps them strong and difficult to push off. See if they're able to get something else done here. Team NGT, they're really believing in their pickoff here. With the Panther, with the Aquila, you know, if you can start to pick off something like the Lumine, takes the legs out from under that enemy composition, could be the game changer as Ramen Rook comes in for a quick bombardment run here, but an earlier priority to the high ground for Team NGT.
Jamming missiles do whiff a little bit. Nice move from Team NGT to get up onto the high ground, so maybe leveraging this Aquila a little bit more with the ultimate height that they're able to sustain for the first bit of the round. But Mingyue said it best just last game. Your best bet at winning a round like this on Palm Bay Harbor is to take the fight and win it before the point becomes capturable. And that's going to be a pretty tall order when you're fighting down onto the low ground with a Hurricane and a heavy tank comp.
Yeah, EMPYREAN trying to push the enemy cart even deeper into the spawn. I mean, you might as well, right?
Yeah.
The point's not open. There's not much to fight for. You can really tolerate all this spam, no problem. And they're trying to flip the map now, taking NGT's starting side.
This is cool. This is a cool strat. You don't see this all the time, but the reverse cap was interesting. Now, unfortunately, they are going to have to commit onto the low ground, and I'm not sure how comfortable EMPYREAN are going to be doing that.
Yeah, they're just letting the cap go. Sky Raider trying to stall a little bit, but not really much hope to deal with that heavy setup. It's going to give an early lead to Team NGT, but EMPYREAN just really valuing the high ground, thinking that, you know what, even if we lose an early advantage, if they just hold this high ground down, could get scary. However, man, Aquila is just raining down fire and fury from above.
And for a little while there, I want to point out EMPYREAN's payload was being pushed back as well. So even having lost the point, I will say this is still relatively close. Point B and point C is where things really start to become disparate, if anything. Trip putting in some good work on the Stego right now, but this map has become so much less of a deathball fest than it normally is. People are way more spread out on this iteration of Palm Bay Harbor.
Yeah, big damage coming in from Magical Abyss. Panther, though, pushing that Hurricane out of position. Team NGT struggling to stay on their cart, though. The pressure a bit overwhelming. That's EMPYREAN's advantage with the comp. They're able to win these ultra-heavy tank trades. And the Cow, though, needs to change things. Need to push people out of position. Bring that distraction effect that Panther is so good at. Nozomi as well, pouring in damage from above. The first pick, though, goes the way of EMPYREAN. Looks like it could be a bloodbath. Both teams having many players dropping low. And Aquila just uncontested in the sky.
Magical Abyss does trade things back, though. With Sakupan going down, things are relatively even. Only 8 seconds left for NGT to get someone back into the fight. And that's where they can start to answer back. Cart's really even right now, though. And what I'm noticing is the NGT are getting pushed back. EMPYREAN have so much staying power with the Hurricane, with the heavy tank composition, that when the carts are even, it's pretty chill to just sit on top of both of them and get yourself a bigger advantage.
Aquila dumping damage from range, but they're not able to secure crucial kills. Point B going to be open very, very soon. Nakao's got to be careful. Diving into that tank setup is incredibly difficult. Well concentrated, but Sakupan got caught, boxed, punished by Ramen Rook.
Pretty nice, and a really good mid-air welcome box can completely change the fate of your game, and it's certainly done so here with point B available for capture and a numbers advantage for EMPYREAN. They got jamming missiles all over the point. This is exactly what you pick Sky Raider for, to make these point caps all the easier for you. Chaldean, however, sitting off point right now, is causing a bit of problems, but with Ancilla picking up kills, Chaldean making it all the easier, picking up an assist as well. You are seeing NGT melted off the face of point B, and a nice capture goes to EMPYREAN.
Yeah, great setup by EMPYREAN. They know inside, that's where they're really powerful, where they're particularly strong. Gariella mixing it up here on the high ground. And the cow, very low, has to back out, tries to stay alive, but struggling to do so under pressure from the Welkin.
Grounded for a second, but Welkin not going to be too worried about that. Using these Aquila drones so defensively as well is pretty rough, because normally you'd be using them maybe offensively onto something like a Sky Raider, trying to ground him and make that aerial difference all the greater. At the moment, EMPYREAN hard riding the cart right now. This is typically what happens as we move through from point B onto point C, and the carts become very far away. So a bit of a break, shall we say, in the action. Maybe a chance to get some picks once we emerge back into the open.
Yeah, momentary reprieve. Both teams trying to reset. Big high ground position, though, being set up for NGT. Harassing EMPYREAN heavily as they try and move out of that high ground, but they're looking so tanky, so challenging to evict from that card with the help of the Hurricane. The rest of the squad, though, hitting from the flank angles here. Team NGT, they want to break this setup right here, right now.
Nakako on the harass, actually almost gets a pick, but nice jamming missiles again onto the high ground position. Forces Hurricane to be the defensive setup for EMPYREAN. I'm watching Triceras, watching Stegos scramble for cover as these jamming missiles make their lives so much more difficult. And NGT lose position in a big way as Yariella commits onto the high ground, wants to finish him off, but can't actually commit onto taking out Rogushi.
Yeah, that Sky Raider, we're starting to really see why this was chosen for Team EMPYREAN. That AoE disruption, really powerful when it comes to the objective. Aggression coming into the Hurricane. Needs to survive. Sakupen getting in there, fighting aggressively in the mix, but now taking a ton of focus fire, struggling to stay alive. This point could be decisive for the game. The first pickoff, though, goes the way of EMPYREAN. They take down Ryoshigu.
Sakupan about to go down as well. That's 2 off for NGT. EMPYREAN having not lost a single player so far. Force Nakako to back off. And that is a lack of positioning, a lack of aggression that NGT can put out, and a point capped now by EMPYREAN, 76-66. This game is far from over, but EMPYREAN doing so much better than I would have anticipated when I expressed doubt over their Sky Raider pick. This is why they picked it. This is the secret sauce that they were not letting slip to anyone, even in scrims.
Yeah, it looks to be really solid here in the match, even getting a bit of cheeky back cap on their opponent's cart. Not wanting to overdo that, though. They have a huge advantage. They just need to win their own hold-on cart. Stego disrupting Fog, keeping everyone alive, getting that armor back for EMPYREAN. Ancilia is low on the point, needs a lot of help to stay alive in the Tricera. That's the pickoff. So Team NGT fighting well. In the open is where they're the strongest here in the final moments of the map.
Sakupan gets aggressive as well. She may be able to make the difference on Welkin. Needs to be able to box someone, isolate a target, and start taking EMPYREAN apart. They're about to get Antilla back into the fight, and Yariella ends up taking out Sakupan instead. With Welkin down now, you have so much less tankiness to commit to the EMPYREAN cart. Nice pick by Nakako, though, onto Chaldean.
Yeah, and they're able to start back up and getting cart control. Our Team NGT, so they're fighting back here on the brink, keeping EMPYREAN away from that desperately sought-after third map. Nakao, key member here, Nagata rather. See if he can get it done on this Panther, pushing people off the cart one by one, denying the capture.
Oh,
with
that's
huge damage from Magical Abyss. 2 pickoffs. Team NGT.
Situations like that, that is why you pick up Inferno. And that is going to be the strat that takes EMPYREAN onto a victory, evening the series between them and NGT.
1-1 is the scoreline, and EMPYREAN, they stave off elimination for now, forcing a decisive Game 3. This does give, though, Team NGT the opportunity to set the tempo with a map pick.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I don't actually know where they go now, because I'd expected for the wide open to be something that maybe you felt a little bit more comfortable on with the Flyers. I'm not seeing NGT really want Flyers at all, and Some of that may be because it's on Palm Bay Harbor, but I would have expected them, if they wanted to run him, to pull it out on Krob Sinkhole, and I didn't see any.
Yeah, I think the Aquila has been a strong point for them. Still available to be banned out, though. So maybe that's the strength now for EMPYREAN. Like, you can take us to a good sniper map, but we're going to take you off Aquila. I think that's still available. Should they want to go that way, they could like to attack maybe the Stego, but both teams have looked solid as far as the main group fight goes.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's necessarily like an obvious, easy map choice here for either squad. That being said, I hope it's an Aquila ban. I mean, I think that's been a real strong point for Team NGT. That maybe is EMPYREAN's hope with if they do want to bring a Falcon to deny one of the better, long-range damage dealers. Win or lose, it feels like that has been a great point for NGT in the series so far.
Just to throw this out there as well, Hurricane, big difference maker in there, retains the 100% win rate on Palm Bay Harbor in this tournament. And maybe you were doubting, maybe you were trying out something different, but whether NGT continue in this tournament or not, everyone can learn a lesson from watching Hurricane be passed up on Palm Bay Harbor and how difficult it is to deal with that.
Yeah, they just couldn't win those main group trades. I think the Sky Raider was also pretty sweet. Like, I would have doubted that coming in. I'm like, well, what's the Sky Raider going to do? But instead of playing the conventional style where he's like super aggressive, always harassing, I feel like he was playing more with the main group. Like, well, you're going to group up and take these crucial fights on the checkpoints. But that's exactly the moment. I'm going to hit you with this heavy AoE, the disruption, and really make it difficult for you to win that trade with the squad. So I actually thought that Sky Raider fit in really nicely on that map. It's an unconventional pick, but one that I was kind of impressed by, something I want to see more teams potentially look to. Yeah,
especially when you're expecting people to group up. The jamming missiles provided so much value, and an underrated thing as well, if you're hitting Lumine with jamming missiles, Lumine's not doing a whole lot of healing.
Yeah,
that's, I mean, it may not be the thing that won it for them, realistically. It's jamming missiles on the Tricera and Stego, but it's a nice bonus.
I think the Sky Raider is actually just a really clutch pickup there. I mean, I think the Hurricane is also super impactful. I think it's like maybe more crucial realistically, but we've seen other teams run the Hurricane before. I think that's EMPYREAN following suit with what other strong teams have shown. But I think the Sky Raider is their unique twist on it. I kind of like it. I was like thinking, hey, maybe other teams should take a page out of their book. They let the Aquila roam free. They said, hey, you can snipe us all you want. We're going to just, stand tall, tolerate all that damage, and still win the crucial indoor fights, being able to close out the map there at the end, just knowing that they have the better raw tanking presence.
Hurricane really enabling that, too. Like, without Hurricane, if you take that out, I think that letting an Aquila roam free, that's going to destroy you. Like, and so when I'm looking at this, I actually think you could, as NGT, try and take us to Eye of Mizra, which is going to be a pretty good map for Flyers, is going to be a pretty good map for Falcons, so maybe that is a little off, but it also forces EMPYREAN to actually address the Aquila because they have been gambling on not having to do that. They tried it on Krob Sinkhole, it didn't work out for them. Not focusing the Aquila on Palm Bay worked for them, and the real bonus is that on Eye of Mizra, you can't really run Hurricane because they're so immobile.
Yeah, and Magical Abyss, great performance there. Big damage on the Hurricane, really contributing well for the squad. Chaldean, I think, another honorable mention on the Stego, turreting really powerfully in that map. And honestly, thinking about going to the next map, I think wherever you go, maybe you just have the option still to ban the Aquila. So whether it's a good Aquila map or not, we're going to have to see, does Nozomi have the flexibility to bring out another, maybe it is an Arcami, but it's not quite the same.
It's cool to see Magical Abyss flexing to the Hurricane here because as we talked about sort of at the end of that match, I was like, this is why you run Inferno, is for the split emitter in that end game state, and being able to have that very same utility on something like Hurricane on their Inferno player. It's like the defensive flex of the same pick, the opposite side of the coin, the shield to the sword, and Magical Abyss did not look uncomfortable on this pick by any means.
And wow, that tanking, massive. Tanking 2.5 million damage. I mean, that's Hurricane in a nutshell on Palm Bay.
Yeah, this
so
is
unkillable.
Absolutely wild. And like so good for being able to reinforce, sort of have that double Welkin box, if you will, with the area cover of damage, but then also the ability to redirect with the decoy drones. You're adding on top of that damage that you're doing passively by laying up drones on top of where you're fighting. Just do the little ticks over time, and then of course you got areas like that where you're able to just free fire into a crowd.
Yeah, we're able to take a look at some of the highlights here from Palm Bay. EMPYREAN earning their first win of the tournament, matching NGT 1-1. We're going to a decisive Game 3 up next. And both these teams now, this is the last map of the tournament for one of these squads. Somebody's going home here. As much as we don't want to say goodbye to any of these teams, they've been fierce competitors. They've been great to watch so far. Gotta think this is the moment, right? Pull out all the stops, bring your best strategy. And NGT, they have a little bit of an advantage here, I'd say, with the ability to pick map, right? Like, you get to decide where is this battle going to be fought. That's a decisive advantage, potentially. Maybe they could go for somewhere where this Panther could be successful. I mean, this looks strong for Nagata.
Yeah, I mean, I could see us going Cape Blanc if they want. I don't think that NGT want to do that, but again, that idea was based on me watching them scrim today. And when we saw them move over to Crop Sinkhole, even though the scrims weren't working in their favor, we saw the value that it brought them against a team that's in their own bracket. When you're scrimming somebody who is in the upper bracket and you're maybe losing control of these wide open maps, it does make sense that you'd get to take that advantage into Krob. However, we're going Graceland Sky City. And remember, Stego Band's still available.
Yeah, I mean, attacking the main group of whether it's a Stego or Tricera with a ban here could be wild. It could really just throw Graceland Sky City into chaos. The question is, what do NGT want? Do they want to attack that main group, or do they just want to say, hey, you know what? We can win that trade. Let's punish you somewhere else. Really curious to see the ban pick. This is that last moment, really the last critical strategic decision for either of these squads.
You are going to be running an Aquila as well. I could see you taking out Tricera, maybe running a double support ban to make this map a little bit more punishing. But it's no surprise to see EMPYREAN take that out.
Yeah, you got to, I think. It would be just way too obvious a strength here on Graceland Sky City. Team NGT considering how they'll respond here. They've already banned the Falcon. Unavailable to eliminate that on this map. And it's going to be the Narukami ban.
I think that's a no ban.
Yeah, maybe they just feel like they want to keep the flexibility open here for both squads. But I have to feel this kind of favors EMPYREAN, right? Like, they haven't wanted to use the snipers really throughout the series, and it's been Team NGT who have relied on it. So for Team NGT, the question is, where do they adapt from here? How do they commit into this final map?
Magical Abyss moving back onto the Inferno, but because we're still running Stego Tricera, I'm watching for that Ramen Rook Falcon lock-in. Falcon separated from Sky Raider by their unique ability on this striker to focus down kills. Remember, with the downward spiral, you have so much more stickiness on a single target, and that's where really good Falcon players can separate themselves. But that will not go unanswered because Ryoshigu on the other side, very good Falcon player themselves, and is the player who actually I was watching some of the most closely today because they choose to play Falcon only on controller.
Yeah, interesting to see Falcon mirror here, Ryoshigu versus Ramen Rook. Two storied Falcon players in this tournament. But Nikao is going to go for the Eliseness, going to challenge the Inferno, so it's going to be really ball in NGT's court here. They've got to get aggressive with the disruption that Eliseness can offer. Feels like if you allow just a pure damage trade to go down, that should favor Inferno. However, this is elimination, so Inferno can also be a liability. It can be a striker that can be targeted down by the opponents. Doesn't have much by the way of defense or survivability.
Not banning things like Stego and Tricera does push us into a map that's probably going to be longer because Graceland Sky City goes to 3 rounds and Stego Tricera have so much survivability. I'm anticipating that we end up going pretty long on this, and there should be quite a bit of stall. Neither of these teams have such a massive advantage over the other that I expect them to snowball.
Here we're on board with the Falcons, scouting out their opponent positions. Very defensive choice here. Team EMPYREAN holding back, playing the high ground, playing defensive. Just wanted to slow this game down quite a bit. Understandable, given that they're running the Inferno. They should feel really good about these long damage trades. However, they've got to get eliminations, and Team NGT aren't giving them any easy targets.
This is interesting, though. I don't know why Trip is so split up from the squad, playing on the outside, but it's the perfect target for Ramen Rook to just dump damage into. Keeping this Stego honest. Roshugi being dealt with on the outside, focusing instead on keeping an entire team at bay. Isn't going to be getting nearly as much damage out of the Falcon, but this haze right now is exactly why we see Stego so often banned on this map. It is so hard to get anything done, especially on Falcon, who does rely on doing slow, consistent chip damage over time, when you can just say, well, I'm untargetable for a few seconds.
Yeah, he's pouring damage in from above, but no eliminations. Neither team wants to make the mistake here.
Yeah.
Right? They both want to play it slow. And Magical Abyss on the Inferno is going to be able to pump this damage trade. So Team NGT going to be struggling to actually break that high ground setup.
Seeing the defensive welcome boxes again. Ramen Rook taking a risk, moving into the center of the team. Can always be CC'd, and this is a sign of a Falcon that's getting a little bit antsy. Saw the box come in behind Ramen Rook. If he gets trapped in one of those, it could be a free kill given over to NGT.
And Yoshigu really starting to pump damage, just getting very confident here, fearlessly just slamming everything into that core setup for Team EMPYREAN. They do still have the smoke from that Stego, keeping them alive, keeping them healthy reasonably, but Team NGT are starting to get a little bit confident here, splitting up a bit, continuing to pump pressure from multiple angles. EMPYREAN don't have many places to retreat from here. They need to win the trade from this position.
This game has essentially become a Falcon skill check. It is whether Ryoshigu is going to get more value, going to be able to force a misposition, or whether we're going to see, on the other side, Ramen Rook do that exact same thing. Ryoshigu does have to disengage from him with those. Ramen Rook rejoins the team. We almost get a dogfight, but it's going to be pretty hard to pull off. So everybody pulls off in their separate directions instead, and we'll be re-engaging shortly. I said this was going to be a long map, Jake. It's looking like it.
Yeah, definitely seems like one that could easily go to overtime. Team NGT are trying to find some way to break this setup, but then again, neither team necessarily forced into an over-aggressive move here. The high ground position has been relatively stable for EMPYREAN so far. And Trip, under cover of the smoke, is going to go over to the high ground, but yeah, doesn't want to overstay his welcome there. Knows that one pickoff would drastically change the strategic reality right now.
A little bit more haze, especially when you've got the cover given to you by Ryoshugi. I'm surprised to see Magical Abyss pushing in here, though. Burns the defensive cooldown just to make sure you don't accidentally get boxed in by the Welkin, but contributing the additional damage could be the edge that EMPYREAN need. Breaking a box very quickly. Sakupan is so low, could be the first pick for EMPYREAN, and we see it on the board. Sakupan gets taken down by Magical Abyss.
The fight has gotten very chaotic here, but one pick up for EMPYREAN means they could slow the game down. They have what they need in terms of the objective. Yoshigu keeping the pressure on the main group of EMPYREAN, making it difficult for them to leave this high ground position, just dumping damage from the high ground.
It is such a problem, though. So hard to focus, especially with Tricera and Stego on top of each other, and I'm happy to see Magical Abyss committing onto the low ground there, because honestly, EMPYREAN do not need Magical Abyss to be staying alive on the high ground. Ryoshigu, as much as he's dumping damage into them, is effectively doing nothing.
Yeah, not able to get much done. On the flip side, Team NGT, the clock's against them now. They've got to make something happen. They've got to start pressuring the high ground. Even if it is a big risk at this point, you have no choice but to take it.
I think you're going to try and get offensive pretty darn soon, and I don't envy NGT having to do this. Nakako committing now with the aggression, knowing that there's only 30 seconds left for the kills. You are relying on EMPYREAN to make a mistake, to somehow be able to crack this Stego Tricera, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not seeing this happening too soon, Jake. The health bars in EMPYREAN are basically full. Caldian, however, does get the fluid armor broken, and we're seeing Ancilla follow. Nakako does get popped into Baby Elysnes for right now, and Sakupan still spinning to win. She is all over NGT are all over EMPYREAN right now, but now it's 3-0 as NGT, committing body after body, are losing everyone on the way.
Yeah, the clock goes against them there. And the defensive posture from Team EMPYREAN, they successfully waited out that big aggressive move from Inferno to secure the opening elimination onto Sakupan was crucial that round. Now into round 2, NGT, they have the opportunity to reset, to rethink their strategy. It seems like they will get the early dominance on this high ground tower.
Pretty big. It makes them essentially unassailable, at least in the same way as they were. Oh my lord, last game, Magical Abyss gets a little too far from the team, and that is the power of the Falcon, especially when you got the backup of the squad.
Yeah, ultimate high control for NGT. They're pumping damage from the low ground. Ryoshigu trying to keep that pressure on. EMPYREAN trying to stay alive, trying to take cover. Ryoshigu doesn't want to let them reset, but doesn't have much follow-up in this position. Tough decision here for NGT. Do they want to commit for more? Seems like they will elect to just slow the game down. They have this ultimate height. They don't necessarily need to leave it.
Nakako thinking about committing since you've got a little bit more safety on the Elysnes, but that is instantly punished. I don't even think you're reaching the rest of EMPYREAN without getting taken out. No need to take the risk right now. And instead, it's EMPYREAN that are going to have to really commit onto the high ground. I knew you were talking about this earlier. If somebody plays for high ground, maybe you commit to low, but when you're already down a kill, it seems like a losing proposition for EMPYREAN, who have no real way to fight back. They're leaving things in the hand of Ramen who should be able to maybe, just maybe, finish off Nuz on the low ground. But Ramen is all alone and into the healing that Lumine, Tricera, and Stego all provide. I don't think that Falcon is cutting it.
Yeah, Team NGT, they back off the high ground, though. They give up that crucial position. There's an opportunity here for EMPYREAN to push the aggression, and they need to do just that. They are down a kill, so they've got to find something to stabilize, or else NGT will just wait the clock out on them. So this time, it's Team EMPYREAN who have to get in aggressive, have to force something. Roshigu dumping damage on this high ground setup, but hold on, Inferno really started to pour the damage on.
Yeah, this is where you really get the power of Inferno, burning through the shields over and over. Magical Abyss has learned their lesson from the first 30 seconds and is no longer extending super far above the squad, but is still chunking health bars as Naz again goes very low. This could be it, and Nozami has to be the focus for Ramen and will be taken out. It is 1-1 with 2 minutes, almost 3 left.
EMPYREAN with the better raw damage. NGT had so many players low in that scenario. Opportunity here for Ramen to find more. Still 1-1 though. NGT, they're down but not out here, fighting strong from the low ground, trying to turn it around, get a counter kill on EMPYREAN. The aggression comes in here. Alisnis diving over the top with the help of Rishku. Players low, vulnerable. There could be some sort of opportunity here for NGT, but their teammates are also in trouble.
Ramen gotta have that killer instinct right now as Nagata, the low Lumine, races right by Ramen. Very surprised to not see him follow up on this kill. Nakako, however, low as well, and the NGT lineup on blinking health bars are gonna have to make it out of this without being focused down, and I don't think that's happening realistically.
They're falling back impressively well, though. They're staying alive for now, trying to get some repairs off on the Welkin. Capturing that objective, still 1-1 here, so neither team in a massive advantage, but EMPYREAN feels like they are winning these damage trades. Inferno, so powerful. And so NGT are forced to constantly rotate away, try not to take that overwhelming damage pressure. But the fluid armors are really in trouble for NGT. They don't have much to work with.
And that is largely due to Ramen now on a split-up NGT, able to really make Falcon work so much better than they were able to earlier. Roshigu still doing a lot of work on Falcon, but a lot of it amounting to nothing as EMPYREAN are so much more grouped up, so much more able to defend each other, where Ramen is picking off a very split-up NGT and picking on them.
Yeah, and that damage, I think, from Inferno is really making the difference here. Nakao tried to get something done on the flank, but Ramen spots it out, starts putting pressure down over there. This range is so long, feels like neither team is really going to be able to pump the damage. It's like this could be going to overtime.
Yeah, with only a minute left, overtime is looming on the horizon, and that's going to be a race of first to 2 kills instead of 6. Nakako does get popped into Baby Alistes right now, has a little bit more survivability, but you can tell NGT with this move alone, reading what Nakako is doing, they want to get aggressive. They do not want to let this go into overtime. Nakako popping the invincibility right in front of everybody, getting the armor airdrop, now is going to commit onto the low ground, just edging a little bit more damage in there as the haze gets popped and Nakako waits for their time to strike. All of EMPYREAN are going to be focused down soon. Ramen doing a really good job just keeping everyone at bay, keeping NGT honest.
Roshigu in real trouble, dropping incredibly low. Ramen wants to find this pickoff, but the support coming in from NGT's Lumine is keeping them alive. And Ramen seems like he won't be able to get that one. Forced to back off, forced to take the regroup. And one more elimination will secure the round. The entire series rests on this.
Somehow even more tense than it was 30 seconds ago, knowing that it is a single misstep that could cost you everything. No chance to get back into it, as this is the last round. It is 1 kill for your tournament life for both teams, and watching the health bars trip so incredibly low could be the one to fall.
Oh, and that does it there. EMPYREAN, they get the win. Great comp selection. Using that Inferno, getting the decisive lead in the range damage pressure. You can see what this means to them. They're celebrating. They're excited. Not sent home just yet. EMPYREAN stay alive, progressing on into the tournament. That does mean, though, we've got to say farewell to NGT.
And it's going to be a tough round to say goodbye on because Graceland Sky City gets so tense. The move into overtime meant everything. but just not having the ability to stay together in the same way as EMPYREAN did, getting split up and having so much more pressure put on them by the Inferno. The difference between these two squads just made NGT's job that much harder.
Yeah, Rick was great on the Falcon. We see why that respect band came out early in the series. So Team NGT, I got to give them props though, man. They fought so well in some of these extremely high pressure scenarios. Despite the game starting to tilt against them, they rotated well, they adapted under pressure. They stayed together as a team until the last seconds. And so I gotta give my respect, you know, that they were able to endure that pressure so well and continue to play their hearts out, continue to play to their standards as a team.
Yeah, they've certainly done themselves proud, done their region proud in the tournament so far, and you've still got plenty more teams to carry on that flag. They're also fortunately going to be continue to be surrounded by people who are so passionate about this game, because though they are ending their tournament run, NGT are still going to be in the building and are still going to be helping and uplifting other squads throughout the next couple of days. EMPYREAN, very well done to them. Remember, I expressed doubt after the first map whether they'd be able to communicate effectively or whether they would just silence themselves with the stress of the map, but they did really well coming back on Palm Bay Harbor and now here.
Great compositional selections. You know, I think on Palm Bay, I really like the Sky Raider. I think that's something that other teams could actually try to deploy if they've got the comfort to bring out the Striker. It looks really strong based on how, you know, tanky and stacked up the meta is on Palm Bay. To have a Sky Raider that really punishes that strikes at the core of that style made a ton of sense to me. I didn't understand it until I saw them play, and I was okay, like maybe that's the move there on Palm Bay. So the meta continues to evolve here in Mecha Break. Well done by Team EMPYREAN, staying alive, keeping the hope for the North American squads.
Yeah, they stay in it. We got another day of NA, and I mean, that is realistically how it's going to go. There are some NA teams that are going to make it quite far, and EMPYREAN, a very well-deserved team to be moving on forward in the tournament, given how hard they've worked in the community tournaments up until now.
Yeah, this is clearly something that they worked hard for, they wanted, they've been practicing scrimming. We've been following them here in the practice area, and you know, it's been a team that's exciting to watch. I'm curious to see how they can continue to progress in this tournament. Can they take down any more teams on their road to victory?
I'd suspect they've got another team in them.
Yeah.
Like especially with the Sky Raider pick, they've definitely got another map in them.
Yeah.
And looking actually at the schedule, EMPYREAN will go on to face CSTG. That'll actually be a pretty challenging matchup.
That's a scary one.
Yeah.
CSTG have been really fantastic. Very, very strong team, not one to go easy on. But that's a matchup for another day, right? You get to rest easy tonight for EMPYREAN. You won your match. You're still alive in the tournament. You can think about tomorrow when you wake up and you know, start to approach that next series. But here we just got to celebrate this one. Thinking about MVP predictions for that, I feel like I've got to put some credit on Rook. That was the Falcon that we've been discussing a lot, how much Falcon is a key element for this team. And
yeah.
I felt like he was getting big damage, big harassment, never cut out, never punished.
I agree that I would give Rook the MVP from a human perspective.
Yeah.
I will say from an objective-based perspective, because kills are weighted so heavily,
true.
Magical Abyss might end up getting it on the Inferno, put out a lot of damage, got a lot of kills as well.
That's a fair point. I mean, I think the Inferno was a key element, and like really the reason strategically I think that EMPYREAN won that is that they had the better range pressure with the Infernos, who was just like dumping cooldowns all game long, and that's what's forcing not only getting those kills crucially, but also forcing NGT into rotations, forcing them to back up. It felt like that always allowed EMPYREAN to be the team dictating the pace of the game, deciding where the engagements were taking place, and as you mentioned, actually securing those kills on Inferno, so crucial. And I liked he was able to push that risk, because with the team playing so slow and passive on the high ground, on that first round in particular, somebody had to get in there. Somebody had to mix it up and to actually take the fight to their opponents. And that was Inferno, surprisingly, who I think you could be easily punished on.
Yeah, Rook, not surprising me at all, ending up statistically very near the top, 2 kills as well. So actually, maybe even entering into the argument for MVP now that we know he's secured 2 of those.
Yeah.
Roshigu, on the other hand, a very expected SVP.
Yeah.
There was just so much damage coming out of the Falcon, and I don't think Roshigu did anything wrong during this last matchup. I think it really just came down to the compositional difference that Falcon was doing their job, and there was no one else to do the job of an Inferno. Yeah,
team strategy so important in Mecha Break right now, and I think that's really what got it over the line here for EMPYREAN. Individually, yes, I was impressed by the Ramen Works Falcon, by the Inferno, but in the end, I think what really matters here, what secures your wins, is the team play, the decision making, and that was decisively in fair favor. I mean, I think being just a little bit greedier with the amount of damage you can deal, you know, running that Inferno for EMPYREAN, it forced NGT to make moves they didn't really want to make there on Graceland Sky City.
Yeah, I credit to Ramen Rook as well, not just relying on the safe damage of Falcon, but especially, there we go, very, very well-deserved MVP, taking risks to open things up. I'm shot back to the first map.